listening to Light 'em Up, our new podcast that focuses on physical security, the criminal justice system, crime scene investigation, and leadership, or the lack thereof, and we'll see about that. Hey, welcome to our 4th edition, hosted by yours truly, me, Phil Rizzo. I am the principal owner of Rizzo's Protective Group. We are a high-risk security consulting firm based out of Akron, Ohio, and I'm also fortunate to serve as the regional vice president governing the entire state of Ohio for ASIS, which stands for the American Society for Industrial Security. And ASIS happens to be the largest professional security organization in El Mundo Total. Hey, we are very fortunate to have author, leader, and U.S. military veteran Louis J. Fernandez with us on this edition of Light 'em Up. Louis is the author of the very timely and highly informative book entitled Keep On Leading, which is currently available on Amazon, so you need to pick that up, get a copy of that for yourself because it's an excellent read. Louis was very gracious to extend time to us in talking with us about leadership, his experiences, and to share his expertise with us, which on the topic of leadership, not only does he exude class and the concept of service before self, but most importantly, he practices what he preaches as well. Hey, I appreciate you joining us and tuning in. Let's get to it. I'm really grateful to you for this opportunity. Hopefully we can help each other out. You know, I got this new podcast and I want to be able to interview quality people. And, you know, I like what you've been doing. I like what I see. And I've always been interested in, you know, the concept of leadership. I've had some pretty bad leaders throughout my career. So, you know, when you experience bad leadership, you kind of get an idea of what you don't want to have. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
Why don't we dive right in, bro? Because I know you got a lot of things that you need to attend to today. So talk to our audience. First, tell us who you are. Who's everyone listening to right now?
Okay. So my name is Louis Fernandez. I'm a former Army officer deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan with the 82nd Airborne Division as an infantryman. Then did a little bit of work on military intelligence. And then I got out of the military to work for John Deere for a few years. Led some teams there, bringing new products to market, manufacturing, that kind of stuff. And now I have recently written a book on leadership and trying to share some knowledge and information and some action steps that people can take, and maybe we can positively impact the workforce and either train out or train up or get out the bad leaders. How's that?
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. That's a good plan. So share with us the title of your book. You mentioned you wrote a book, and
oh yeah.
Tell us the title of the book, and tell us a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, so the book is called Keep On Leading, and the principle behind the book is that there's kind of 3 different leadership groups, right? So you got to lead yourself, you got to lead individual people, and then you can lead teams.
Okay.
So I've kind of split up the book in that way. So you have yourself, and there's usually, I kind of want to be conversational in my writing. It's one of the reasons I self-published, because the publishers did not like the style. They didn't like that it was short and to the point, and the stories, I like them to be impactful. You know, I'm a business professional. I understand you don't have a lot of time, so I just want to get to it. So I want to tell you stories, something that's interesting, that'll catch your attention, that may help you understand the principle we're teaching. And then an action item. So what can you do, like a physical act you can take today that will help reinforce the lesson you just learned? And that's how the whole book is set up. You know, a story, some lesson, and then an action item. Split up into those kind of 3 categories.
Okay. Where can the listening audience get the book? Is it on Amazon? Where can they access it? Where can they get a copy in their hands?
Yep, it's available on Amazon.
Okay.
Keep On Leading.
Okay, absolutely. This is exciting stuff. So, Louis, share with us what you think about, everyone knows so much about leadership. Why don't things in general run better, more or less? I mean, when you see, you know, when you look on LinkedIn, and there's a lot of people who espouse to know about leadership and to be leaders. I mean, why don't things work for the better for the most part? I mean, share with us your thoughts on that.
Well, one is that you can't, in my opinion, okay, I've thought a little bit about this, and I keep talking myself out of my own ideas. So I think if we nailed this one down, that would be kind of a $1 billion idea. But human beings are complicated.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about human behavior, it's a complicated problem. I mean, there's a whole field of psychology, that's human behavior. And if you ask a psychologist, why do people behave poorly? Be like, bro, I can push you towards 10,000 pages of anyway.
Yeah.
So, but here are some thoughts. One is that a leader has to be selfless, and we are kind of generally selfish creatures. So if I go on LinkedIn today and I'm like, hey, here's how you can improve people around you. This won't help you, but it'll help people around you. I'll get maybe 3 likes.
Yeah.
The reach will be zero. Nobody will be interested in that. But if I come out and I'm like, hey, here's how you can make $10,000 a month, boom, right? Like all of a sudden everybody's interested in this because it's self-serving, right? And so to be a good leader, you have to be selfless. The irony behind that is that the more selfless you are, the more you will benefit, because your team's going to do well when you look out for them and you put their needs first, you do all that stuff. Your team is going to improve. Since your team improves, then you end up improving as well. As a young lieutenant, which was interesting, when I was in the Army, they would actually rank us. So my battalion commander had 30 lieutenants, and on your evaluation at the end of the year, it would say number X of 30. So it would say number 3 or number 5 of 30.
I see.
So, you were always ranked against your peers. And what I found is, one, I'm not the smartest, I'm not the fastest, I'm not the strongest. I'm a little guy, I'm 5'7". I'm not super athletic, I'm not super coordinated, I'm not the best technician. I'm okay. I would be like a B student all the way across, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But what I have that other people maybe didn't realize is that I would go out of my way to help everyone else. Even though if I helped a dude do something, then I'm not pushing higher in the ranking against me, I still made it a point to, in the end, the way I looked at it was, I want to bring all my guys home, and I have to make sure that everyone around me is great too, to keep me safe.
Absolutely, to watch your back, yeah.
And so being alive was more important than being number 1, okay? And I was never number 1, but I was always in the top 3 or 4. And that is what set me apart, because when you do that for other people, then in turn they do it for you. And when you need a favor or you're in trouble, people rush to help you out. People will take the time to teach you because you took the time for that, right? So but you can't, and then I'm doing the same thing, right? I'm going back to giving the selfish reasons for why you should do this, but really you should just do it, right? It's the right thing to do. It's the moral thing to do. And it just so happens that sometimes when you do the right and the moral thing, and when you help out other people, you also see greater benefits to that. There's also an internal joy, and that should be the motivator, right? Like the internal joy of, if I find someone on the street that's begging for money and I give them $1, I don't expect anything in return, and I shouldn't, right? It's just, it feels like that person needs it a lot more. We had some stuff on my desk, and somebody's like, oh, somebody's going to take that. It was like $1, something on my desk. And like, somebody's going to take that. I said, you know what? Somebody needs that $1 so much that they're willing to lose their job over it. They can friggin' have the $1.
Yeah.
Okay? So I will, it's $1 still sitting on my desk. I purposely haven't moved it after that conversation. Now it's just a matter of principle, right?
Yeah.
I've made that statement, so I'm going to leave it there now. And now I'm not going to use the $1. It's just going to sit on my desk. So the point is that I think because people are inherently selfish, that it's hard to be selfless and to be selfless always. It's easy to talk about it and maybe do it once or twice, but to live that as like a part of who you are, that's what's difficult.
Nice.
And I think that's what drives some of that. We have more ego. We're not humble enough. We snap at people. We raise our voices. Whatever it is, right? All of these drive from a selfish attitude because we are individually under stress.
Yeah.
And our boss is telling us that, we're not meeting targets or whatever, and we forget that everyone else also has a problem. Everyone else also has something they're going through. Just because you're going through a hard time, the green light to be a dickhead, right? And forgive my language, but
I follow. I know what you mean. That was even more politically correct than what I would say. So you're good. You're good, bro. To follow up on that question, if to lead is to serve, what makes so many leaders selfish? What do you think? If servant leadership motivates the team the best of all the different styles of leadership, and number one, do you think servant leadership probably be the best style of leading? I mean, I know it would probably be different for each person, but to motivate the crowd, to motivate the team, wouldn't you say maybe that servant style of leadership would be the way to go?
I think so. And so to answer your question here, I think that the dictatorial style, the dictator who comes out and the fear-based leader, they end up having results, but they have them short-term.
Okay.
So that's kind of like doing some sort of drug to increase your energy versus changing your diet and going to the gym. The drug can increase your energy, and in fact, it probably will do better, faster, in a shorter amount of time. But the long-term effects are much, much worse for you, and they start to create a sickness inside of your body that eventually cannot be healed. Or eventually what you have to do is then you finally have to get to the point where you got to do the diet and exercise or you're going to die, right? So you have to stop the drug and you have to do this or you will die. Leadership is the same thing, right? So people will go in this fear-based manager and will start writing people up and firing people and making examples out of people, and productivity goes up. And everyone's like, wow, it works. You just got to be hard on them. This generation needs people to be tough on them, right?
Yeah.
And then fast forward a year, and half of the people have left, and everybody in the shop or everybody in the business is new, and you're trying to train all these new people, and your productivity now starts to dwindle.
Yeah.
And the HR then you start complaining the HR manager won't let me fire anybody. Yeah, they've only been there 3 months. They don't know what the heck the standards are, and you're trying to fire them. So then you start running into these you created this toxic culture, and there's a sickness inside of the organization, and it's palpable, and the motivation is low, and people do only as much as they have to in order to avoid getting yelled at, and everybody's resumes are up to date, and everybody's looking and talking to recruiters, and they're not giving you 2 weeks notice, and you're always interviewing, and you're always training, and you don't understand why. And this is what's going on, right?
The HR department, they have to be able to see that. I mean, if they're constantly in an interviewing cycle, in an onboarding cycle, I mean, sooner or later, their eyes have to be open to the fact that something's going on here. There has to be something with our culture or something that we're doing.
Well, typically, they try and do it in exit interviews to kind of determine this stuff. But in an exit interview, the smart person, and I've done it myself, is you're just surviving that last final discussion. You're not really going to be honest about it. And when people are, when they decide to be bold and honest about what's going on, they become a one-off statistic. Because nobody does that. Everybody else is just, I'm only on good terms, and there's no point, because I've been trying to say things for however long, and nothing's changed. So at this point, it doesn't make sense to say anything else. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to go on with my life, right?
Yeah.
And then the one person who says to themselves, they need to know what's going on there, and they tell the truth, then that person becomes a one-off. Oh, that was just one unhappy person. But no, it was just one honest person. Everybody's unhappy. That's why, if your turnover is over 7%, or you have quality issues that are, if your quality numbers are like 15 to 20% of what your total sales are, and that would be in like projects coming back or some sort of rework. If your safety record is poor, that's another indication of a fear-based manager. Yeah. So these are all things that, if these things are going on, these are indicators that you have a fear-based manager that is infecting your workplace culture.
That's a good term.
Even if they are producing temporary results.
No, absolutely. Infecting. I picked up on that word. That's, more people need to think about their behavior and make sure that they're not impacting or infecting others with the toxic things that they might do in the workplace.
Right.
Do you think that leaders are born, or are they made by circumstances in general?
I think it's probably a little bit of both, I think some people have kind of a natural distance to it, kind of like LeBron James, right? That dude was born to play basketball. He had a natural disposition to it, physically, for this sport. Or what was that dude, the swimmer that won all those gold medals?
Michael Phelps?
Yeah, Michael Phelps, right?
Yeah,
so he has his torso and his legs, like everything's proportional to make him, be this kind of swimmer, right?
Yeah.
But if Phelps and LeBron James did not train, they wouldn't be the caliber of athlete that they are today.
That's true.
So they they had a natural disposition, and they worked their asses off to get really great at it.
Yeah.
And now, someone like me, I could work as hard as them and be there for every single workout and try and do exactly what they do. I will never be as good as them, but I can be pretty good. You know, if I trained with LeBron James for 15 years and did everything he did for 15 years, I'd be a pretty good basketball player.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
But I would never be as good as him. So can it be, there is and I think leadership is the same way, right? So I have the opportunity to be alongside those types of characters. When I in the military, I was surrounded by LeBron James type guys and Michael Phelps. I mean, I was in the premier leadership organization on the planet, and we were tested in some really extreme situations, surrounded, outnumbered, and that's where I got to learn how to lead.
I see.
And so, like, this is the worst case. You know, my first game was in the Super Bowl, right? Like, that was my first NFL game. You know, like, dang, competition is tough here. And then they're like, yeah, all right, now let's go back to college ball. They're like, oh, I see. This is pretty easy compared to the other stuff, right? Like, that's kind of but I was surrounded by outstanding leaders doing phenomenal things that helped teach me how to get better too. I'm really thankful for that opportunity, and that's a long way of saying that leaders are sometimes born, but they can be made better.
No, I hear you. It makes perfect sense. So, as a leader, how do you learn what motivates a person?
You gotta talk to them, and I mentioned this multiple times in the book, and, you know, you said you followed me on LinkedIn, you've seen me talk about this, I've got blog posts about it. You have to do one-on-one conversations.
Yeah.
It's not optional, you know, and people say to me, oh, Lewis, I don't have time to sit down for an hour with each of my employees. I'm like, oh, no, but you have time to sit down for an hour to interview the replacement, and then all the time costs. You think you can't afford to do one-on-ones, but can you afford not to do them?
Yeah, that's true.
You know, and the thing about I don't have time, by the way, my subordinate leaders, they're not allowed to say I don't have time.
Okay.
They have to tell me, they have to say I didn't make it a priority.
I see.
And here's why. I don't have time to go to the hospital right now, all right? But if one of my kids needed to go to the hospital, this conversation is over.
Right.
We're going to the hospital.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
It just became a priority. So it's a matter of what we choose to make priority. So if they have to tell me I didn't make it a priority, I have to explain why. And sometimes it's true. It's a good reason. I didn't make it a priority. I had X, Y, Z. Okay, makes sense. But if they're embarrassed to tell me that they didn't make something a priority, then they know they should make it a priority.
Absolutely.
You know, if I say, hey, did you read that book I sent you? You're like, man, I haven't been able to make it a priority. Okay. Hey, man, did you do my yearly evaluation that is going to affect my pay rate for? Oh, no, I haven't made that a priority.
Yeah.
What the hell are you making a priority then?
Absolutely. That's
as long as your pay, would it be a priority?
Yeah.
Right? But we allow ourselves to say I didn't have time.
Yeah, it's a convenient excuse that we use.
Yeah.
I see.
So you got to do this one-on-one conversation. And so, here's the other one that I hear is I have one-on-one. I go and ask everybody how they're doing every day. Mm-hmm. That's not a one-on-one conversation. If I walk up to you, your cubicle or your workstation or whatever, and I'm like, hey, how's it going? What do you say? Good. All right, cool. And then walk off.
Yeah,
that's... Right? What did you learn about that person?
Nothing.
But we all do that because it's like, versus the boss sends you a meeting notes. Hey, we're going to sit down for a half hour. I'm giving you a half hour of my time to tell me what you think is going on in the organization. I'd like to know a little bit more about what's motivating you. What do you think we're doing wrong? What do you think we could do better? What do you think we're doing well? No real agenda. Let's just generally talk about topics. See you at this time. The employee walks in, you shut your laptop, turn off your screen, you shut the door, and then you say, so how's it going out there? Okay? We have framed a conversation differently now at this point. And then you start telling me, so what do you think is going well? What do you think is going poorly? How do you think we can improve the organization? What gets you motivated? What gets you excited? What do you like about working here? What don't you like? What are some obstacles that are in your way, right? And these questions are easy for me because I do this all the time, all right?
Okay.
Because I'm doing this with my employees kind of regularly. And now it's the point, often I don't even have to ask a question. They just sit down and they're like, okay, here's what's going well. Like, they know, like, this is how this conversation is going to progress. And from that, people will tell you, this is how I like to be motivated. And now they may not say specifically, this is how I like to be motivated, but you may see, you got to pay attention. And when they light up about something, like, and I had all my parts there on time, it was awesome. Or my computer is moving so fast right now, it's great.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, that's motivating to them. You know, would it cost me so much to maybe get them a newer computer 1 year sooner than I normally would? It would. If that would have an exponential increase in productivity, is it worth that $1,000?
Absolutely.
I don't know. It may or may not be, but now you know that that's enough. Right? That's kind of my technique. I recommend doing that, having those one-on-ones once a month with everyone that is your direct report, and try and do them once a quarter or twice a year with 2 levels down. And sometimes that can get hard because 2 levels down can get pretty big.
Yeah. That encompasses a lot of people.
You could be talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not a workstation conversation. You gotta give up a half hour or an hour.
Yeah, you got to be plugged in. I mean, it's all part of leading. You have to care about your people, and you have to let your people see that you care. You know,
right?
Things along those lines.
And then you got to take action based on what they tell you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not just the hearing it; it's also doing something.
Yeah. The
about
doing,
whatever it is that they said. Yeah.
Absolutely, the doing is the huge part that a lot of people don't take into consideration. So, in your opinion, would you say that as a leader, it would be better to be loved or to be feared, and why?
Well,
along the lines of the book The Prince by Machiavelli, you know, is it better to be loved or is it better to be feared?
Yeah, we know where Machiavelli stood on that. So, the reason I'm struggling here is because I think about, my dad, right? So when I was a kid, I loved my dad. Mm-hmm. I also had a little bit of fear towards my dad as well. Right? It was sort of like, but not like I was afraid of him. Mm-hmm. I just kind of respected the position that he was in. I guess similar to my God, I feel the same way. You know, I love and fear. That fear is, though, it's less of I'm afraid of them more than I'm afraid of the consequences of my own actions. I guess I'm not a fan of the hypothetical. I would rather be respected and trusted. How's that? I'd probably go with loved, but I can also see how, like, the leader who's too soft, right? So you'll also have to draw a line somewhere, and you have to sometimes have hard conversations. And, I've had to fire people, and sometimes it's hard because I know, like, he's got a daughter that he's fighting for custody for, and this is not going to help that conversation. But he put my shop at risk. Like, he did something extremely unsafe, and I am not going to put that risk on the lives of everybody around him, so he's got to get fired. The guy who wants to be loved, the Michael Scott of the Office. Michael Scott was an ineffective leader. He just wanted to be loved. Yeah. And then the guy who rules by fear is going to be ineffective as well. I mean, there's kind of a balance, right? There's a little bit of a dichotomy here. Absolutely. And I guess I would lean towards the love side, but you still have to be tough, and you still have to have difficult conversations, and you have to be, you have to push people and make them do things that they're afraid of doing, and make them challenge themselves and push them into the direction to be better and be uncomfortable. Like, these are all things that if your goal is to be loved, you're not really doing,
Yeah. In the military, in your experience in the military, have you ever encountered examples of servant leadership, or is the military style just to lead by fear and lead by, like, dictatorship or directive? I mean, what's your thoughts on that? Have you ever encountered any servant leaders in your experience?
Absolutely. Don't believe the crap you see in the movies.
Okay.
The most effective military leaders are doing the same thing as okay. So have you seen the show Band of Brothers?
Yeah.
Okay, so Captain Winters in Band of Brothers is just a great example of what servant leadership in the military looks like. There's a scene where they're about to attack, and they're not exactly sure how many guys there are. And Winters gives it a very clear order. He's like, you guys move on the red smoke. Do not move before the red smoke. You move on the red smoke.
I see.
And he throws this grenade, and he takes off running, and then he throws the grenade. So he's got a solid head start on all his men. And he figures that it'll give him at least 3 seconds to make a decision before the men show up. Right? And so he puts himself out front, and he takes the risk that maybe they wouldn't take. There's another movie that I saw on Netflix. It's Outlaw King, I think is what it's called. It's based on Robert the Bruce from He's the guy who fought with William Wallace.
Okay, yeah.
Back in
I remember
Braveheart,
the movie Braveheart with William Wallace and okay.
Right. So this one is based on Robert the Bruce.
Okay.
And it's a little bit better historically, but there's a scene where they come up and they're digging, the men are digging a trench, and the messenger comes in and he's on his horse and he looks down and everyone's digging and goes, "Do you know where the king is?" And he throws down the shovel and says, "I am he." Right? So he's down there digging the trench with his gun. Now let me tell you, tomorrow when they go to war, they're in a battle and he tells them to charge. They're going to charge.
Absolutely.
Right? With everything.
Yeah.
Because yesterday, he dug that trench for them. We're just alongside him to the point where nobody could recognize where the king was. Right? And in the military, you'll see that too. You see that all the time, of leaders putting themselves out front, of taking additional risk, of being the last one to, everyone else gets food, and then you get whatever's left. Once everyone has been fed, you place the soldiers first, because they're the ones that are actually going to fight. And by the way, if you're in the infantry and you don't have the support of your men, and you say, "Follow me," and head up the hill, you want them moving just as fast as you do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're on your own, bro.
I know. And, you don't want to be cannon fodder. I mean, you want to.
Right.
No, I hear you, man. Absolutely. So to follow up on that, how do you think a person can lead, or how can they show leadership when they're not in charge?
Well, the same way is just going out of your way to help other people, and that's the best thing. Stand up for what's right and help others. I interviewed a candidate recently for a leadership job to work for me as subordinate leader. In the interview, this guy's telling me, "Well, if I was in charge, I would do this and I'd do this." He started listing like 3 or 4 things, and I wrote them down, and I kind of looked at that list. And I said, "Why are you waiting until you're in charge to implement any of this?" And his jaw just kind of dropped, and he was quiet. And I was like, "I'm looking at this list of things here, and there's nothing on this list that requires you to be in a leadership position to do."
I see.
And he just paused. And when it was over, he told me, when the interview was over, he's like, "I knew you asked that question, that I didn't get it." And I was like, "Well, man, the people that are going to get leadership jobs are the ones that are acting like leaders today.
Yeah.
Not waiting to be leaders to act like them, And he still hasn't done half of the things that were on his list.
I see.
Really what he was searching for was the money and the personal, right? So I sniffed that out. I had a feeling that's what was going on, but I like to give people chances and opportunities, and I find that exciting.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you see something that needs change, that can be changed, and it doesn't require a leadership decision to do so, just do it. Implement it. Talk to your peers. And that'll give you some good training. Like, learning to lead without authority is good training for leading when you have authority. Because when you don't have authority and you're trying to convince someone to do something, you've got to give them good reasons to follow you.
Yeah.
Not, "I'm in charge." Right? If I walk into some place and I hear a manager saying, "I'm the boss, do what I say," he's not in charge.
Yeah.
I can already tell you that dude, he may be the boss, but he's not in charge. And if I'm a manager and I walk in and one of my leaders says that, he's done. I'm firing him, because he has lost the ability to lead his team if he has to remind them that he's the boss.
No, that's true. That's true. Absolutely. I guess it's like when you watch Dr. Phil on TV, and if a parent starts losing their control with a child, then the child is winning. You know what I mean? It's like if you've lost your cool and you're just going ballistic on your little one, yelling at them, then you're out of control, and you need to call a timeout and check yourself and regroup. Talk to us a little bit about maybe 3 to 5 of the most impactful leaders for doing good or positivity that would make your list throughout history, and why. I know this is highly personal. Just throw out there maybe 3 to 5 names of impacting leaders that have done good, and why you think they are good at what they do.
Okay. So as a history major, this is a difficult one for me, because I think of a lot of folks. Okay, so I'll start with, I'll say George Washington. I know it's kind of an easy one, but even though his humility was a little bit, we could make the case that maybe he wasn't so humble, but he was a guy who the nation wanted to follow because of his humility and action. Mm-hmm. Right, so those two things combined made people want to follow him, and voluntarily walking away from the presidency. You look at people that came after him, and I don't know too many that follow or that would have led that way. When there was no precedent set already. So good on him for that. Another one who's one of my favorites is Frederick Douglass.
Okay.
What an amazing character. I got goosebumps just thinking about it. I've got all of his autobiographies, and so I'm gonna botch the story because it's been a few years since I've read, but I think he was 7 years old, and he'd been given as a slave to a young gal who didn't have very much experience with the cultural aspect of slavery. So she looked at him as a young boy and was teaching him to read. Mm-hmm. And one day her husband came home and beat the crap out of him and then yelled at his wife for teaching this boy to read.
I see.
And Douglas heard the argument, and he heard the man say, if they learn this, you'll never be able to control them. He was 7, and he thought to himself, if this guy is so scared about me learning how to do this, then I need to learn how to do it. And he taught himself how to read. Crazy, right?
Yeah.
So he teaches himself how to read, and then he becomes an unbreakable slave. So they send him to a guy to get broken. That's like, this dude's job was breaking slaves. That's what he did for a living. He's just a ruthless human being. One day, Douglas is getting beat up, and he just decides, you know what? I'd rather be dead. And it's really interesting that there are things that are worse than death. And he just decided that at this point, I'm not going to let anyone do this to me again. He beats the crap out of the slave breaker. Mm-hmm. They get into a fight, and he can fight, and he beats him up, but leaves him, and decides, at this point on, for the rest of my life, I will not let another man beat me. I'm going to fight back. And he did for the rest of his life, both physically and intellectually.
Yes, that's
right?
true.
And
yes.
To the point where, and then this is what's really beautiful about him as a character, or as a person. I mean, he had a wonderful mind coupled with decisive action and fearlessness and courage. And that is just, to me, like, man, what an example. So, yeah, one of my favorite people in all of history, and to me, like someone I look up to quite a bit, Frederick Douglass, once took on a whole ship of people, got beat up so bad and got kicked in the face, and he ended up with a scar for the rest of his life from that fight.
Wow.
But he didn't back down, man. You know, he just wouldn't back down.
Strong character internally and externally. I mean, one of the quotes that I remember that sticks with me to this day from Frederick Douglass was when he said, agitate, agitate, agitate. You know, that was about the institution of slavery, but that's kind of stuck with me because I've always been a person who, I haven't always gone along with the rest of the crowd. I've always kind of not been an iconoclast, but if someone says something that's wrong and I know it's wrong, then I'm going to say something about it, no matter what it costs me, you know. And I've had situations in the workplace where that's happened, where, you know, you get a new boss or something, and like the first thing he says to you before he says, hi, how are you? He says, well, I see the salary that you're earning, and if there's ever going to be cutbacks, well, we're going to start with your salary. And I'm thinking, what did I do to this guy to deserve my salary to be cut before he ever said hello to me, you know, or introduced himself? So, I mean, the Rizzos, our family, we've always been blue collar, and we stand up for the little guy, you know. I'm sure that Fernandez's are the same way. I'm sure of that, you know. I mean, as we get ready to wrap up, because we've got some solid information here from you, Lewis. Let me ask you to do this. If you were to put these terms in order, if you were to put these words in order of importance from the perspective of a leader, where would you rank number 1? Where would you rank number 2? And where would you rank number 3? The first word is act. ACT, the second word is pray, and the third word is think. So how would you build those blocks in terms of importance from the perspective of a leader? To act, to pray, and to think.
Pray, think, act.
Okay.
I think is how I would put that. If as a Christian, I am a Christian. Yeah. Sometimes I don't really exhibit those principles very well.
No, we're all human. We're all human. We're all flesh and blood, all fallen.
Yeah. When I look at, we love because he first loved us. Mm-hmm. And we're charged to go out, and this is what our charge is as Christians, and actually as Jews as well, right? So if you look at the history of the God of Christianity, from Judaism to Christianity, the role was to love others and set an example. So live a life of example and love others. Mm-hmm. And so, we talked about earlier what was most important about that servant attitude and the like. So for me, my motivation of where I get that from starts from above, so that it's not a selfish act, but one of service, true service, right? And that's what our job is to serve God and to serve each other. So that's first. And then I put think before act, because I think you should think before you act.
Yeah, that's important.
Acting is important, but I like to say that I had a leader tell me one time, you take as much time as you have to make a decision. And he said, sometimes you're only going to have a couple seconds. And I had that experience where I only had a couple seconds to make a decision. And, I had a guy ask me if he could shoot another dude. And I had literally just 2 or 3 seconds to decide whether or not I was a bad guy before I gave the order to shoot, to take that dude out.
Yeah.
But I've also had months to make a decision. Should we include this option in a new machine that we're going to bring out in 3 years? Well, let's do some more research and get some more information, and let's do a cost-benefit analysis. And, do we want to add another SKU to our manufacturing, which adds complexity to that? What cost is associated with it, right? So I got time to make that call. And I'm going to use as much time as I have until I reach the point where now I have to make that decision. I have to act. I cannot think anymore. Now I have to act. So to answer your question there, pray, then I got to think, and then I'll take action.
Absolutely. Okay, that makes perfect sense. A lot of people, they don't think before they act, and that's why they end up in the criminal justice system, But I get your point. Just to speak directly to my audience, I'm following Lewis on LinkedIn. I would like to recommend that you do the same. Also, his very informative book entitled Keep On Leading. That's the title, right, Lewis? Keep On Leading, you said.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's right. Uh-huh.
I also encourage everybody to make sure they pick up a copy of this book, because Lewis is someone who not only talks the talk, but he walks the walk. And like I said, in 2020, I particularly find this to be rare and unique, and people like Lewis need to be celebrated because they're actually doing the work, where so many people talk about it, but they don't actually do the work. And I've been an investigator for about 20 years now, so I can see, I think I am a good judge of character. We're talking about a veteran here who has given his time in service to our country, and we need to be thankful for that as well. We need to be thankful to all of our servicemen and women who are out putting their lives on the line to make sure that we're free. What's the saying that I see from time to time, that freedom isn't free, or something along those lines?
Yeah, no, that's it.
Lewis,
well, thank you so much for that. That's really kind. So, thank you.
No, my
Very
pleasure.
kind words.
My pleasure. And thank you for taking your time out of your day to share your thoughts, to share your professional expertise with us. And like I said, I hope that this is the start of a big friendship, a professional friendship where we can share more information as you continue to do more. We're interested. We want to hear about it. We want to be one of the first that maybe you share with us. We're excited
Definitely.
about you, and we're excited about what you're doing, and this is good stuff. It really is. We want to thank Lewis again for his time.
Sure.
As I see it, one of the most fundamental responsibilities of my servant leadership role is to help foster, facilitate, and further or create an environment or a culture in where every member of the organization is able and willing to do their best work. It must be a culture built on the foundation of trust and mutual respect, and leaders must make it psychologically safe for team members to speak up about risks or deficiencies in the process. It's crucial to let them know that they'll be heard and that effective action will be taken in a timely manner. This means that leaders, they have to manage their own ego, of course. They must be able to check their ego at the door, but not check their brain. While ego can be a powerful force for good, left unchecked, it can wall leaders off from the communication, cooperation, collaboration, and the innovation of others. And I've been in the business of trying to position others to lead for 20 years. And after all, at its core, I've always felt that a leader's job is to be a servant first and to help create other leaders, not to create other followers.